The House of Trovi takes vanity to a whole new level. Its walls are practically a shrine to breathtakingly beautiful women. And for good reason. This family has a long history of producing empresses like it's their full-time job. Reigning emperors have picked Trovi daughters so often that some nobles joke there must be an empress starter kit hidden somewhere in the estate. Naturally, Emperor Osis III follows the tradition and handpicks the latest Trovi gem, our girl, as the future empress for Crown Prince Sovieshu. The marriage? Purely political. The goal? Stability, alliances, and keeping up appearances. The silver lining? She and Sovieshu actually like each other. Unlike many arranged royal couples, who have to awkwardly pretend to enjoy each other's company at banquets, these two have been thick as thieves since childhood. They are the kind of childhood friends who finish each other's sentences, prank unsuspecting nobles, and make royal tutors reconsider their career choices. By the time they reach marriageable age, the noble circles have already placed their bets. To them, Sovieshu and his Trovi bride are less of a political match, and more of a fairy tale come to life. If court gossip had a fan club, these two would be its official mascots. Our girl and the crown prince are practically joined at the hip. They spend countless days together, plotting their dream empire like two kids planning the world's most ambitious treehouse. Every decision, every vision, every what-if scenario, they tackle it together. If Sovieshu is the grand architect, then Navier is the master builder. She's not just any empress, she's the empress. The yin to his yang, the brains behind the crown. The kind of ruler history books write entire chapters about. Everything flourishes under their reign. The empire prospers, their partnership is solid, and for a while, it looks like their story is straight out of a legend. Until, of course, the plot twist no one saw coming. One day, everything shatters. The kind of day that makes history, the kind people tell their grandkids about with a dramatic gasp. Navier, graceful, powerful, and undeniably blessed in every department, steps forward and publicly announces her acceptance of a divorce. The empire collectively forgets how to breathe. Gasps, whispers, stunned silence, it's chaos. The men? Oh, they panic. Some shout, beg, plead for her to reconsider, as if their words alone can undo the mess the emperor made. Speaking of the emperor, here's the reason for this whole disaster. Turns out, fidelity wasn't exactly his strong suit. And standing right beside him, his mistress. At first, she shakes like a leaf, probably realizing she's about to be the most hated woman in the empire. But then, just when the tension reaches its peak, she smirks. The kind of smirk that says, exactly according to plan. Rashta clings to Sovieshu like a lifeline, as if letting go would send her plummeting into the abyss. Meanwhile, the emperor, Navier's soon-to-be ex-husband, stays as unreadable as ever, his face a masterpiece of indifference. If he has any emotions about this moment, they are buried under layers of royal composure. The priest clears his throat, addressing Navier with the solemnity of a man who'd rather be anywhere else. Do you truly accept this divorce without objection? Navier doesn't hesitate. She affirms it, her voice clear and unwavering. For the first time all day, Sovieshu shows an actual reaction, a quiet sigh of relief, slipping out before he can stop it. He expected a battle, a dramatic refusal, maybe even tears. But this was almost too easy. But just as the emperor starts thinking he's in the clear, Navier makes her move. I will accept the divorce, she says, her voice ringing through the hall. On one condition, my request for remarriage must be approved. Silence. Absolute, earth-shattering silence. The air itself seems to freeze. Then, like a tidal wave, murmurs sweep through the crowd. Remarriage. That's not just shocking, it's unheard of. A divorced empress moving on. Impossible. Unthinkable. Blasphemous, even. Navier doesn't flinch. She stands firm, her gaze unwavering, her expression unreadable. There's no hesitation, no second guessing. She's not making a request. She's making a statement, a declaration. And judging by the stunned faces around her, she just changed the game entirely. The priest looks like he's questioning every life choice that led him to this moment. Remarriage. In this empire, he might as well start packing his things now. Meanwhile, Navier watches the crowd's reaction with quiet amusement. She was expecting the chaos, and oh, does it deliver. Regaining what little composure he has left, the priest clears his throat and asks the question burning in everyone's mind. Who is the groom? And just like that, the air thickens. The tension is so palpable, you could slice it with a dagger. Every noble, every court official, every single person present knows something is about to happen. They don't know what, but they can feel it. Then, the atmosphere shifts. A presence makes itself known. An unseen weight presses down on the room. The ladies turn first, then the men, drawn by some invisible force. And from the darkness, he steps forward. A sick smile curves his lips, one that speaks of secrets, of plans long set in motion. He walks with an air of amusement, like he's been enjoying the show from the shadows, just waiting for his cue. And oh, what an entrance it is. No one expects him. No one dares speak his name. But he is here, in the flesh. Heinrich. He moves past the onlookers effortlessly. Past the whispering nobles, past the priest who looks ready to faint, past Sovieshu, who still hasn't fully processed the fact that his ex-wife is 5 steps ahead of him. And finally, he stops, right beside Navier. The entire room holds its breath. And in that perfect moment of silence, Navier delivers the final blow. He's the one. Her voice is clear, unwavering. No hesitation. No second thoughts. Heinrich is the man she intends to marry. And just like that, history is made. Just a few months ago, the palace buzzes with the usual gossip, but today, the maidservants are on another level. The subject: the empress, the emperor, and some mystery girl they recently stumbled across. The consensus: she looks like a runaway slave, and if there's one thing palace maids love more than polishing silver, it's unraveling a juicy scandal. Then, the air shifts. Empress Navier enters. Instantly, the chatter dies, and the maids snap to attention, greeting her with the proper respect. Navier acknowledges them with a nod before taking a seat. But something is off. The room is too quiet. And that's what bugs her. She knows these girls well, they never miss a chance to exchange knowing glances, especially when there's palace drama brewing. Folding her hands neatly, she tilts her head. All right, what am I missing? Something happened while I was away. That's all the invitation they need. The floodgates burst open. Your Majesty, His Majesty brought back a girl from his hunting trip. She's some strange thing. He had us bathe her, Your Majesty. Bathe her. And dress her up. Like, really dress her up. The indignation in their voices is unmatched. It's not even about the girl at this point, it's the fact that they, the royal maids, had to scrub and primp someone who wasn't Navier. Unthinkable. An outrage. A direct offense to their years of service. Navier listens, absorbing every detail, but one thing is clear, this isn't just some charity case. If Sovieshu went out of his way to clean her up and make her presentable, something is definitely up. Our girl sits quietly, letting the information settle. The room is still buzzing with the aftermath of the maidservant's emotional outburst, but she remains composed, taking it all in. And then, of all things, they start complimenting the girl. Oh, she is beautiful, one of them admits, though it sounds more like a reluctant confession than genuine admiration. Second only to the Duchess of Twania, another chimes in, referencing the woman universally acknowledged as the fairest of all duchesses. Not that it matters, someone quickly adds. Compared to your majesty, she's nothing special. A collective nod of agreement follows. Priorities must be kept straight. But then comes the part that really matters. One maid, hesitant but unable to keep quiet, delivers the final piece of the puzzle. Your Majesty, it seems His Majesty has taken quite a liking to her. Navier finally speaks. Her tone is even, almost amused. Surely my husband hasn't done anything funny. The maids exchange looks. They know exactly what she means. Well, one of them ventures, he was absolutely frantic over her. Asking her all sorts of questions, fussing over every little thing. Navier hums thoughtfully. That's all. The maids gape at her. That's all. As far as they are concerned, this is a full-blown scandal in the making. You're being too naive, Your Majesty, one finally blurts out. It's obvious there's something between them. Our girl raises an eyebrow. Naive? Huh? Hardly. But now, her curiosity is piqued. The older maidservants, the ones who have seen it all, take a more serious tone. Your Majesty, we are only concerned for you, one says gently. It's just, there's been a change in His Majesty. A distinct one. His manner, his air, something is different. It's an honest sentiment, not just idle gossip. And really, they hope they are wrong. They want to be wrong. Nothing would bring them more peace than finding out this is all just a misunderstanding. The Empress listens in silence, then takes a slow sip of her tea. The warmth does nothing to melt the cold weight of uncertainty settling in her chest. She turns their words over in her mind. If what they are saying is true, what can she do? She is the Empress, the woman beside the Emperor. And yet, that doesn't mean she holds the strings of his heart. The maids exchange glances. Would Your Majesty like us to gather more information on the girl? It's an innocent offer, a way to help, but Navier shakes her head. That won't be necessary, she says, offering them a small smile. She appreciates their loyalty, truly, but she doesn't want them fanning the flames of something that, for all they know, could be nothing at all. Her gaze drifts to the window. The sky is clear, the world outside calm, completely unaware of the questions churning inside her. She makes her conclusion. Sovieshu must have brought this girl in simply because he's a compassionate man, a kind emperor. That's all. It's sad. Because that's not the case. Not at all. We know this. We've seen the future. Or is it the present? Either way, one thing is clear, Navier's world is about to change. At the dinner table, our female lead brings up the topic that's been on her mind. She's heard the rumors. Her husband found a girl during his hunting trip and brought her back. She wants to know how much of it is true. Sovieshu sits across from her. The clinking of silverware stops as the air shifts. He acts surprised, questioning where she even got such information. Navier isn't about to let him steer the conversation away. Where she heard it doesn't matter. What matters is the truth. Silence. He doesn't respond. Navier presses him again, her tone firm. She isn't asking for riddles, she's asking for answers. Sovieshu's expression darkens. He doesn't like where this is going. They only share 2 meals together each week. He decides this is not a topic worth discussing. With a forced smile, he dismisses it and pushes for a change of subject. Navier recognizes the shift in Sovieshu's tone. It's laced with irritation, a silent warning not to question him any further. The message is clear, this conversation is over. A new day dawns. The Empress wakes up feeling unsettled. Something about last night lingers, but she pushes it aside. The maidservants notice immediately. Something is off. They move closer, eager for an update on the Emperor and the mysterious girl. Navier doesn't have much to offer. Sovieshu gave her nothing in return. The maids exchange knowing glances. They are convinced something is going on. Pressing gently, they try to get more out of her. She finally gives in, relaying what little she knows. Sovieshu claims the girl was caught in one of his traps by accident. She isn't a runaway slave. He brought her back only to ensure she recovers properly. He insists it was simply the right thing to do. Even so, he made one thing very clear: he was not pleased that Navier kept pushing the matter. The younger maidservant's eyes widen as realization strikes. Panic turns to fury. She's seen this before. Her own father acted the exact same way when his affair first started. Her jaw tightens. All men are the same. No exceptions, no excuses. It's textbook behavior. When they start getting defensive, when their voices rise at the slightest questioning, it's a dead giveaway. She isn't wrong. The logic is sound. If His Majesty truly has nothing to hide, why would discussing the girl with his wife be such a problem? Shouldn't he want to clear up any misunderstandings? The older maidservant steps in, placing a calming hand on Laura's shoulder before things escalate further. She suggests she step outside for a moment, cool off before saying something she might regret. Her maidservant exhales sharply, still fuming. With a curt nod, she turns on her heel and storms out. The maidservant approaches the empress with gentle care, helping her up from bed. In her hands is a fragrant cup of tea, offered with the hope that it might soothe her troubled mistress. She speaks softly, assuring Navier that the emperor is simply fascinated by a beautiful woman who happened to get caught in his trap. Nothing more. She calls the senior maidservant, Countess Eliza. Meanwhile, an unspoken question lingers: why does Navier seem so gloomy? Back at home, in her younger years, her mother had taught her an important lesson: never show weakness. No matter what. Even if the emperor took a mistress, she must not falter. Why? Because among the nobility, such things were commonplace. Expected, even. So she reminds herself, mistresses may come and go. They are fleeting, temporary. But she is the empress of the Eastern Empire. The one and only. That will never change. Yet, despite this truth, a hollow feeling settles deep inside her. In theory, Navier tells herself she should be fine. This is nothing she hasn't prepared for. Nothing she shouldn't be able to handle. Her maidservant disagrees. Without a word, she pulls Navier into a warm embrace, gently patting her shoulder. It's okay to feel this way. It's normal. After all, she's been betrothed to Sovieshu since childhood. They grew up together, built a life together, and now, this. A thought crosses Navier's mind, and before she can stop herself, she voices it. Would His Majesty feel this hollow inside if she had another man by her side? It's an interesting option. A tempting one. Shaking the thought away for now, she considers something else. Maybe she should see this new girl in person. Get a better understanding of the situation. Her maidservant immediately advises against it. There's no need. Even if the girl becomes a mistress, she won't hold any real power. Not in public, not in social circles. She'll always be just that, a mistress. Nothing more. In their empire, a certain number of slaves are reinstated to commoner status each year, but never those who ran away. A runaway slave is a fugitive, someone who fled without paying for their crimes. Slavery isn't just a punishment, it's a life sentence for serious offenses committed by them or their ancestors. With that in mind, even if Sovieshu takes this girl as his mistress, her social standing won't change. She'll never be accepted into high society. Our girl exhales, easing up just a little. Countess Eliza has shed some light on the situation, offering a sliver of peace. This girl will live her life, Sovieshu will live his, and she will live hers. That's all there is to it. Still, it doesn't erase the shock. The emptiness lingers. It's one thing to know mistresses are common among nobility, but it's another to see it happen in her marriage. Once again, she holds onto the one unshakable truth: no matter what happens, she is the empress of the Eastern Empire. The one and only. Days pass, but the palace is still buzzing with whispers. The emperor and his mistress, it's all anyone talks about. The empress steps out to the park, hoping for a moment of peace with her book. But even here, the gossip follows her. The voices around her murmur the same rumors that drove her to seek fresh air in the first place. With a sigh, she shuts the book and sits in silence, gathering her thoughts. Eventually, she stands to leave. If solitude won't find her here, there's no point in staying. Then, something catches her eye. A figure stands in the field. Unexpected. Unfamiliar, yet unmistakable. Lady Rashta. The emperor's now famous mistress. Navier takes in the sight. The woman is undeniably beautiful, the kind of beauty that turns heads and starts stories. But why is she here? How did this moment come to be? And more importantly, where will it lead? Rashta greets the empress with a big, cheerful smile, like they're old friends catching up. Navier barely acknowledges her with a nod before turning to leave. No need for unnecessary conversation. But the young lady isn't having it. She calls out, casually. Too casually. Did she just say hey to the empress? The sheer audacity. Even her own maidservants panic, trying to hold her back, but Rashta is on a mission. Full of excitement, she strides up to Navier, beaming as she introduces herself. Our girl barely reacts. What exactly does this girl want? A polite response seems safest, so she gives a simple greeting in return. Maybe Rashta just wants her to say her name. Fine. No harm in that. It's not like they'll be running into each other again. Satisfied with her effort at diplomacy, Navier turns to leave. And then, something completely unexpected happens. Rashta reaches out, trying to stop the empress from leaving, but instead, rip. It happens so fast. Too fast. The sound of fine fabric tearing fills the air. And then, all Rashta can manage is a sheepish, oops. The park falls silent. Maidservants freeze. Navier stands still, momentarily stunned. Then, chaos. Countess Eliza rushes forward, immediately shoving the young lady's hands away. The audacity. The insolence. The absolute nerve. Rashta instantly folds, looking like a lost puppy. Apologies spill from her lips. She didn't mean to. She just wanted to call out to our female lead, but she wasn't sure what to call her. Laura sees red. Not sure what to call her. Is this a joke? She's talking about Her Majesty, the Empress of the Eastern Empire. With barely restrained fury, she warns Rashta to watch herself, but Rashta doesn't even try to play dumb. She knows exactly who Navier is. She's always known. Navier exhales a long, deep sigh. So, she knows exactly who I am. And just like that, the pieces click into place. This girl is the one. Rashta. The woman indebted to Sovieshu. The one staying in the Eastern Palace. The one with the injured leg. Ah? The slave. The words leave her lips without much thought. The reaction is immediate. The young lady freezes, completely speechless. It's one of her maidservants who jumps in to defend her, quickly correcting the empress. Lady Rashta is not a slave. Navier arches a brow. Oh? Then what exactly is she? Because last she checked, her ladies-in-waiting were quite clear, this young woman was a runaway. Still, she doesn't argue. There's no need. Some things aren't worth debating. Rashta beams, claiming she's been meaning to say hello. She's so glad they finally met. Our girl blinks. Excuse me, the casual tone, the friendly vibe, It's almost like Rashta thinks they are old pals catching up over tea. With the confidence of someone completely unaware of social hierarchy, Rashta cheerfully assures the Empress that they'll be seeing a lot more of each other. Since that's the case, she figures they should get properly acquainted now. Then, with wide, expectant eyes, she asks again, what should she call Lady Navier? Navier considers this for exactly 1 second before answering. Her Majesty, the Empress. Nothing more. Nothing less. Rashta tilts her head, looking like she doesn't quite get it, but Navier is officially done with this conversation. She turns to leave. And then, again, Rashta reaches out. Laura acts fast, slapping the young lady's hand away before she can touch the Empress again. The nerve of this girl. It's bad enough she's acting all buddy-buddy with Her Majesty, but now she's grabbing at her like they're equals. Laura's had enough. Filthy wench, she snaps. And that's when it happens. A voice cuts through the air, sharp and unmistakable. Who are you calling a filthy wench? Silence. Everyone turns. It's the Emperor. Laura stiffens, the maidservants bow, and even Navier offers a polite nod. But Sovieshu. He doesn't even look at his wife. No acknowledgement, no greeting, nothing. Instead, like a man possessed, he rushes past her straight to Rashta, who, of course, is already welling up with perfectly timed tears. Without hesitation, he throws his cloak over her shoulders like she's the most precious thing in the world. Don't cry, he soothes, brushing away her tears as if she's a child who just dropped her favorite toy. And Navier. She watches. She watches as the Emperor, her husband, comforts his mistress right in front of her. Watches as his guards and maidservants pretend not to see. And then, finally, her gaze shifts to Rashta. Oh, so that's how it is. This young lady isn't just here to play house. She's on a mission. Navier's heart skips a beat, an unfamiliar weight settling in her chest. Countess Eliza was right, this feeling is inevitable. But thankfully, no one can force her to stand here and watch this spectacle any longer. She keeps her expression composed and announces, I'll be taking my leave. My feet are aching. Simple, polite, and an easy escape. But Sovieshu isn't done. Wait. Navier pauses, turning back to face him. What now? The Emperor's gaze shifts, not to her, but to Laura. The maidservant tenses, hands clenched at her sides. Oh no. Oh no no no. The Emperor orders Navier to leave Laura behind. And just like that, the temperature drops. Navier blinks, once, then twice. Did he really just say that? Did he just try to separate her from her own lady-in-waiting? Because of Rashta. Laura, an esteemed daughter of a high-ranking noble family. Navier inhales slowly, then speaks. I refuse. Silence. She doesn't waver, doesn't blink. Laura is my lady-in-waiting. It would be unthinkable to punish her over someone who is not even officially your concubine. That would not only be shameful for her but also for me, the Empress. The words are firm, decisive. Sovieshu says nothing. Rashta's eyes dart between them, lips trembling in her usual woe is me routine. Navier holds her ground. Laura is going nowhere. Oh, this just got interesting. Sovieshu crosses his arms, his expression cold. Laura may be your lady-in-waiting, but she is also a citizen of my empire. And as emperor, I have dominion over everyone here. With that, he turns to his guards. Take her away. She will be locked up for 3 days. Laura's heart sinks. Rashta, standing there like the star of a dramatic play, lets out the smallest smirk, blink and you'd miss it. Navier stiffens. Oh, so we're doing this now. Husband, this is excessive. Her voice is steady, but her patience is wearing thin. Sovieshu doesn't budge. He gestures toward Rashta, who is suddenly the most delicate creature to ever exist. She is injured and under my care. Yet your lady-in-waiting insulted her. This is not up for debate. His eyes narrow, sharp and unwavering. Laura, trembling like a leaf in a storm, suddenly speaks up. Your Majesty is wise. Your judgment is fair. Navier's head whips toward her. Excuse me. Laura, still shaking, clearly wants to live. Sovieshu dusts off his hands like he's just solved the world's greatest problem. We are done here, you may go. With that, he turns away, holding onto Rashta like she's the most fragile little doll in existence. He even pats her head for good measure. Navier watches them walk ahead, her fist clenched so tight her nails dig into her palm. This wasn't just an insult, it was a spectacle. A very public, very humiliating display of power. 3 days crawl by, and finally, Laura is released from the castle dungeon. Navier herself goes to the tower, personally retrieving her lady-in-waiting. No one else is laying a hand on her. Back in her chambers, she has Laura bathed and dressed, the scent of fresh lavender filling the air. A tray of her favorite desserts is set out, a silent apology in the form of sugar and care. Just as the mood starts to settle, a knock sounds at the door. A nervous young messenger steps in, practically sweating through his uniform. His Majesty requests your audience, Your Majesty, he stammers. Navier tilts her head. Requests. The young man shifts uncomfortably. Well, he, actually ordered me to bring you to him immediately. Oh? So it's that kind of request. Navier lets out a tired sigh and follows the messenger without a word. No point in objecting when the Emperor's already made up his mind. They arrive at the Emperor's chambers, and the messenger stiffly announces her presence before scurrying off like he wants no part in whatever is about to go down. Navier steps inside. Sovieshu sits up, wasting no time getting to the point. I heard you insisted on personally escorting the girl I locked up, he says, tone sharp. Why? Navier blinks, tilting her head slightly. Are you asking why I attended to my lady-in-waiting after you had her punished? His jaw clenches. Clearly, she's hit a nerve. You knew this, yet you still tended to Laura, he presses. I expected you to have her thrown out instead. Navier stares at him for a moment, as if trying to gauge whether he's serious. Then, she states the obvious. It would be unjust to cast out a servant for being devoted to her empress. Sovieshu scoffs, rubbing his temples. That makes no sense. Our girl raises an eyebrow. On the contrary, my actions are well within the bounds of common sense. It's almost funny. Almost. Sovieshu leans back, arms crossed, clearly unimpressed. He didn't summon Her Majesty just for a casual chat. He wants to know if she intends to keep Laura by her side. As it stands, he says, voice laced with irritation, she's already a laughingstock. She was punished for speaking out against a mere runaway slave, who isn't even my mistress yet. Navier doesn't even flinch. I'd appreciate it if you didn't make decisions about who I appoint as my lady-in-waiting. His expression darkens, but she continues. If I exile Laura from court, she'll be ostracized from society. That's not something I'm willing to do. Sovieshu scoffs. She got punished because she was outdone by Rashta. That's all. Navier tilts her head. And now this has gone too far. What exactly do you stand to gain from all this? He exhales sharply, pinching the bridge of his nose like he's dealing with a particularly stubborn child. I'm tired of going over this, wife. For once, I'd hoped you could just obey me without objecting. Navier simply stares. Obey. Interesting choice of words. Our girl draws the line. She's the empress, not some handmaiden waiting on Sovieshu's every whim. She says this as respectfully as possible, but there's an edge to her voice. His Majesty exhales sharply. This is exactly the problem with you, wife. She raises an eyebrow. You're too conscious of your position and power. That's why I can't help but compare you to someone else. He doesn't say who, but let's be honest, there's only one person he could mean. His sweet, innocent, cry-on-command Rashta. Navier stands in silence, his words settling in. He finally waves a hand. I'm tired. Leave? She wastes no time. She turns and strides out without a second glance. Sovieshu sighs, reclining in his oversized, unnecessary chair, brooding like a tragic hero in a bad play. He reaches for the tiny, ridiculous bell beside him and gives it a ring. A moment later, footsteps approach. A voice announces itself. Your Majesty. Navier's not there to see it, but if she were, her jaw might hit the floor. Because guess who just waltzed in? Rashta. Hold up, when did she start playing attendant to the Emperor? Crazy things are happening. Even Sovieshu is caught off guard by Rashta's sudden appearance. He raises an eyebrow and asks what she's doing here. She beams at him like a child with a secret. I took the job as your personal attendant. He blinks. You? What? I just thought it'd be a good way to help out around here, she chirps, hands clasped together like she's a saint gracing the palace with her generosity. Yeah, sure. She's totally here to fold napkins and polish silverware. Absolutely nothing else going on here. The Emperor watches her, amused. With your injured legs? She nods enthusiastically. He chuckles, shaking his head. You shouldn't be working. Just sit here and rest. Enjoy some pumpkin pie instead. Her eyes light up like he just promised her the crown itself. Pumpkin pie? Sovieshu smiles, amused by how easily pleased she is. Pumpkin pie. She practically vibrates with excitement. Meanwhile, he sighs, leaning back in his chair. I gift the Empress the finest jewels, and she barely reacts. But Rashta. So easy to please. Ah, yes. The bar for affection is now set at pumpkin pie. Rashta tilts her head, all innocent curiosity. Your wife. Is she not impressed by your gifts? Sovieshu leans back, arms crossed. Oh, she's grateful. Just reserved. She only ever shows the slightest flickers of emotion. Rashta hums, tapping a finger against her lips. Maybe it's because she never knew hardship. She's always lived in luxury, right? Maybe she takes precious gems for granted. The Emperor's brows lift slightly. A spark of something unreadable flickers in his eyes. The young lady immediately stiffens, realizing she might have overstepped. She waves her hands in a frantic attempt to backpedal. I don't mean to speak ill of the Empress. He chuckles, reaching out to stroke her hair like she's some fragile little thing. You're more clever than you seem, he muses, that usual predatory glint in his gaze. My little prey. Ah, yes. His favorite sick pet name for her. Absolutely nothing unsettling about that. Rashta blinks up at him, batting her lashes. You promised to make me your mistress. The Emperor smirks. I haven't forgotten. But he's in no rush. As far as he's concerned, Navier hasn't caught on to anything yet, so there's no need to slap a label on things too soon. He assures Rashta not to worry, he's got a plan already set in motion. A plan? Oh boy. Whatever it is, it's bound to be a disaster waiting to happen. Enjoying this story so far? Drop a comment showing your interest in a part 2 and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Until next time, adios.